Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. On the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana News Desk.
Indiana University's budget is going into effect next week. We got a closer look at which areas are facing cuts.
We're supposed to be getting more done. We're supposed to be doing it with fewer staff and with fewer faculty. The math does not work.
Martinsville residents worried having I-69 coming through town might be a blow to the community, but it's been anything but that.
Probably the last 3 years, we're seeing a lot of new construction. We're seeing a lot of people coming to Martinsville.
Morgan County is also investing in infrastructure, including a new justice center. And girls basketball participation is booming in the state, thanks to a WNBA superstar playing for the Fever. We'll have these stories and more right now on Indiana News Desk. Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Joe Wren. Indiana University's new budget takes effect on July 1st, but very few have any idea what's in it. But we do know the university has to pare $100 million from the budget due to lost funding from the state and federal governments. Our Aubrey Wright reports on how those potential cuts will impact the university.
IU is working on reducing its spending by $100 million this year, as the university is adapting to financial pressures from the government and is making cuts. Some faculty have concerns. It's June 12th, and Indiana University's Board of Trustees is about to pass the upcoming budget.
It's a $4.5 billion budget with a lot of moving components.
Unlike the previous year, the university isn't going to get the government support it's used to. IU will miss out on $60 million from the state and $40 million from the federal government.
We began building in literally about a 2-month period a reduction of $100 million to our operating expenses, focused primarily on the general and designated funds, which are our most unrestricted and most flexible.
IU says it's making, quote, deliberate and targeted reductions. Dudich announced it will cut unfilled positions, travel will be reduced, and retirement contributions will decrease by 1%. With the budget balanced, the board gave its approval. IU will release the details in August.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
And now the university community is waiting for the budget to take effect July 1st. It's not something they would have expected 6 months ago.
It's serious in the sense that IU has always been sort of cutting it close to what we can afford. And that's a big reduction.
After President Donald Trump took office, his administration planned significant funding cuts for university research across the country. Federal agencies have cited the ability to save billions of dollars and repurpose the funds for efficient research. But the abrupt changes left college researchers in the lurch. They're searching for discoveries in medicine, energy, technology, and more.
All of us, especially in the sciences, are encouraged not only to do original research, but also to seek funding for it. And so a lot of funding comes from federal grants.
Federal grants directly fund research projects by paying for things like equipment or materials. The grants also cover a variety of indirect costs, such as accounting, maintenance, or just keeping the lights on. Now, those indirect funds could be significantly reduced.
That cut will have tremendous impact because it basically means the university won't be able to afford to have the labs that are necessary to do that research, which what the longer term outcome of that will be, I don't know.
Indiana's government also complicates the situation. Legislators cut at least 5% of higher education funding in a tight budget year. Plus, Governor Mike Braun requested tuition freezes to help families pay for college. IU trustees and President Pamela Whitten complied with his wishes, wanting to keep college affordable.
I'm pleased to announce that Indiana University will recommend holding tuition and mandatory fees flat for in-state undergraduate students for the fall 25 and 26 year and for the 26-27 academic years.
Tuition revenue is IU's largest source of income, about a third of its budget. For certain schools, it makes up even more.
Where is the money going to come from?
Shopko says IU is supposed to serve Hoosiers, but out-of-state students will bring in more money.
Setting us up in this particular way really forces us not to serve the state as well as we might.
And she says her colleagues are in programs under threat. Because IU's network is so connected, potential losses will impact the entire university.
It cannot be business as usual.
She fears staff won't be replaced and young researchers won't want to come to IU.
We're supposed to be getting more done. We're supposed to be doing it with fewer staff and with fewer faculty. The math does not work.
She says one thing made the cuts particularly hard. After hearing the budget reductions on June 12th, the Board of Trustees awarded Whitten with a $225,000 bonus, the maximum allowed by her salary bump to $900,000.
The people who teach courses are producing revenue. The staff and the departments are supporting that revenue producing operation, And these are the people who are being asked to, bite the bullet here.
The university is planning a second phase of cuts, adding up to $200 million. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Aubrey Wright.
The university not only has to deal with cuts to its budget by the state, it also has to comply with new laws affecting higher education. And as Ethan Sandwise reports, one of the new laws could cost the university hundreds of degree programs.
One of the new laws requires public colleges and universities to eliminate programs with low numbers of degrees granted, averaged over a 3-year period. The cutoff is 15 graduates for a bachelor's degree, 7 for a master's, and 3 for a doctorate. Based on federal data from 2023, around 200 BA, MA, and PhD programs at IU Bloomington fell short, mostly humanities programs such as Jewish studies, classics, and languages.
The BA in Germanic Studies is one of the over 20 BAs that, according to the law, cannot survive.
WFIU WTIU News does not have data for degrees conferred in 2024-2025, and IU has not commented on the programs at risk. The law also calls for eliminating all costs associated with those degree programs.
If you would eliminate literally every unit that offers one of these degrees, you would have to eliminate significantly over 20 units.
So far, most faculty don't know what to expect. The president-elect of the Bloomington Faculty Council says she hasn't heard anything from the university, but that it's, quote, aggressively moving to get in line with the new law.
There are going to be big changes for this university, and the pace at which this is being pushed through is just really, it's not designed for positive outcomes.
The university declined an interview, but spokesperson Mark Bodie wrote in a statement, quote, IU is working with campus leaders to comply with the process mandated by state law. One supporter of the changes is Indiana Governor Mike Braun, who says students need marketable degrees to help pay off debt.
I think Indiana needs to look at how they're producing degrees that are more marketable, that they're lined up with where the high demand, high wages are in our own state economy, and start running it in a way that's more efficient.
As a mother of an IU student, Aku says she's sympathetic to the desire for marketable degrees, but that cutting majors misses the point.
I don't think we necessarily know what the good paying jobs of the future are going to look like, and what students need most is a broad education that teaches them how to be adaptable, how to be creative.
To comply with the law while preserving courses and faculty, campus units may propose merging degree programs. Instead of receiving a BA in French, for example, a student might instead get a degree in modern European languages. Turk worries that could hurt IU's reputation as a top humanities institution.
Universities transform, and I think often for good reasons, and there's always debate around it, but in this case, it's profoundly unclear what exactly the rationale is.
The law goes into effect July 1st, but the deadline for complying has not been specified. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Ethan Sandweiss.
We're joined now by Elise Perry for more headlines from around the state. Welcome to the show, Elise.
Thank you, Joe. The Crawford Apartments, a complex geared towards housing some of Bloomington's most vulnerable residents, could lose its rental permit. The city of Bloomington on Tuesday issued a notice of default to the complex owned by Crawford Apartments LP. A spokesperson for the city says more than half of Crawford's units are uninhabitable because of damage. According to the notice, Crawford's owners have until August 1st to get its units up to city standards. Fewer than 1% of Indiana high schoolers say they smoke cigarettes. That's according to a new survey from the Indiana Department of Health. That's a significant drop from 2000, when nearly a third of students said they smoked. E-cigarette use has also dropped to 5%, its lowest rate since 2012.
It's really been a steadfast effort to engage community partners, to engage youth themselves in some of this work.
Still, officials warn that flavored products and frequent vaping continue to drive nicotine dependence among teens. The state of Indiana's lawsuits against TikTok can move forward after the Indiana Supreme Court decided not to take on the social media company's appeals. Brandon Smith reports.
The state sued TikTok in 2022, arguing it violated Indiana's Deceptive Consumer Sales Act. It said the app exposed children to inappropriate content and did not adequately inform users that their personal information could be exposed to the Chinese government. The trial court said the state didn't have any jurisdiction over TikTok, but the Indiana Court of Appeals disagreed. Attorneys for TikTok and the state made their arguments to the Indiana Supreme Court Tuesday.
Indiana is seeking to punish TikTok for statements that were not made in Indiana, that are not about Indiana, that were not targeted at Indiana, and that were not tailored to Indiana.
And just a few hours later, the justices decided to deny transfer of the case, meaning the Court of Appeals opinion stands and the state's lawsuits against TikTok can move forward. Two justices, Jeffrey Slaughter and Christopher Goff, voted to take the cases. None of the justices explained their decision. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
Cases of bobcat fever, a disease that can be lethal to domestic cats, have been confirmed in Monroe and surrounding counties. The disease comes from a parasite that ticks carry. Bobcats are the natural host for the parasite.
When a tick feeds on an affected bobcat and then it feeds on a domestic cat, it can transmit that parasite from the wildlife to a domestic cat.
Cats may feel lethargic, have a fever, have trouble breathing, and experience seizures up to 15 days after being infected. If not treated immediately, it can be fatal. The disease is not transmittable between cats. And Wally Watch is underway at IU's greenhouse. The gigantic corpse flower, with its smell of rotting flesh, is about to bloom. The odor comes from the flies, roaches, and beetles that pollinate the flower.
It is just a unique smell. It's just something, it's not like a rose, it's not like a Cattleya orchid.
IU has a webcam where you can watch Wally 24/7. And Joe, the greenhouse will be open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
All right, I don't know. I think I'll just go online maybe for that one. Thank you. Coming up next on Indiana News Desk. With the completion of the final phase of I-69 last summer, Martinsville has seen an influx of people and new construction. And participation in girls basketball in the state has taken off since the arrival of superstar Caitlin Clark on the Indiana Fever. These stories and more right here on Indiana News Desk.
This is the moment that you've been waiting for.
On your marks, get set, go!
Discover extraordinary lost worlds.
I know scientists that would give their right arm for this.
This is heaven. Hope y'all ready.
Recently, WFIU and WTIU lost a combined $450,000 in state funding. This loss will directly impact the programming you rely on every day. The mission of public media has never been more vital or more vulnerable than right now. We're deeply committed to providing trusted programming to this region, and we're relying on our community now as much as ever. Help us meet this moment by becoming a sustaining member or increasing your monthly gift at WTIU.org/donate. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indiana News Desk. When plans for I-69 were unveiled, Martinsville residents worried that having it running through the city might isolate the community. But local officials are learning to use the interstate to their advantage. And as Benta Boutier reports, the area is seeing a rise in housing construction as people take advantage of a lower cost of living and easier commutes to Bloomington and Indianapolis.
Just off of I-69 in the southeast part of Martinsville, construction is underway for a more than 200-unit housing development. It's some of the most significant home construction the area has seen in years.
5 to 10 years ago, it was a lot of Martinsville people moving around in Martinsville. Not a lot of new construction, some, but not a lot. And I would say in the last 5 to 10 months, or even a little bit longer, probably the last 3 years, we're seeing a lot of new construction. We're seeing a lot of people coming to Martinsville.
There's another neighborhood being built out across the street, and Chandler says the developments can be attributed largely to I-69's opening.
Then the home that we're sitting in is a production style company that does thousands of homes every year, and they found the worth in Martinsville to plop down here and start entire communities.
More realtors are coming to sell homes from Indianapolis, and Chandler sees more people moving from out of state for a cheaper cost of living. The median home price increased for her in the last year. Indiana's Realtor report says Morgan County's year-over-year change in home sales was 30% for May 2024 compared to May 2025. Nearby Johnson County's was 7% and Monroe County's was -16%. Morgan County's Economic Development Director Mike Dellinger says many of its residents value the area's rural feel, but some growth is needed.
But we do want to see a population gain that's more than 0.5% each year.
Only counting births and deaths, Morgan County's population dropped from 2023 to 2024 by 132. Migration into the county boosted its population slightly.
We're at 73,000 people roughly now. And if we grew at about 3% a year instead of 0.5% a year, it would still take us well over 12 years, or in that range of 12 to 15 years, if we were growing at 3% annually to become a county of 100,000 people.
Dellinger says the county wants to preserve its nature and plans to increase density around metropolitan areas. Right now, people are moving to Morgan County and commuting to Bloomington or Indianapolis. But with I-69, Dellinger says the county can attract higher-paying jobs, like life sciences and microelectronics, to change that.
If we use our transportation corridors wisely, and the ground that's around them for commerce wisely, that we can create more opportunities locally.
Brian Collier has been a county commissioner since 1998. He says Morgan County is one of the last counties surrounding Indianapolis to invest in new economic development and infrastructure.
And if we don't make some changes and get some amenities for the next generation, if we don't invest in ourselves, why would you want your children to come back at all?
Morgan County hasn't updated or built new facilities for more than a decade, he says. Putting off infrastructure developments has made them a costly but necessary endeavor now to meet current and future community needs. Construction is underway for a $76 million Justice Center now. Collier says these developments haven't been popular with everyone, and he's not sure he'll be re-elected commissioner. But he says it's local leaders' responsibility to use I-69 to the area's advantage. He compares it to a lump of clay on a potter's wheel.
And you can put it on a potter's wheel, add some water and get it spinning, and we can help shape it, or you can complain, leave it there, let it harden, and you just have a big lump of clay.
Chandler says people are noticing Morgan County and Martinsville now. The area's median home price increased in the last few years, getting closer to the state's. She expects to see young people stay or return to Martinsville with their families.
Because the housing has changed so drastically in the last 5 years versus 10 years ago. And there's a lot more places, a lot more nicer places for them to afford.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Venta Boutier.
Girls basketball leagues in Indiana are seeing higher participation rates since women's basketball star player Caitlin Clark joined the Indiana Fever last year. Isabella Vesperini has more on how Clark has transformed the sport locally.
12-year-old Callie Schofield started playing basketball in kindergarten and plays in the Central Indiana Basketball Association. Seeing how much the sport has grown with Caitlin Clark has motivated her to put more effort into the game.
She's inspired me to play up in the college level. Hopefully I can break as many records as her, which probably can't, but just breaking anything at my school, hopefully just being as good as a player and a teammate as she is.
Schofield has seen more girls her age playing and watching basketball.
Most people used to just keep walking past courts and not really pay attention just to their own game, but now everybody, if they see something big, they stick around. There's usually like thousands of people at a basketball tournament that don't play, but really are just spectators.
Over the last few years, more girls are playing in the Central Indiana Basketball Association. The league's director attributes that to how relatable Clark is.
You look at LeBron James and you're like, he plays somewhere. You know, you look at Brittany Griner, you're like, she's definitely probably a WNBA player. But you look at Caitlin Clark, she kind of looks like just your average person out here. And so I think it gives, you know, young players, they look at her and like, hey, like I could go to the WNBA too.
Moss hopes to get more funding for his league and is working with some of the older girls to increase their exposure on social media. He wants to take advantage of Clark's time with the Fever to promote girls basketball.
I think it's a good time for us to be doing this, you know, and I think it's going to do nothing but grow over the years as we continue to build it.
A recent report shows media coverage of women's sports has increased 275% in the last 5 years, and women's sports revenue has increased 300% in the last 3 years. When the Indiana girls basketball program first started in 2017, only 4 teams signed up to play. Last year, 44 teams registered to play.
The most important thing is that girls get to play with girls now. Like any girl who used to be interested in it they were going to camps with mostly boys. And so some of the feedback that I got this week was like, these little girls love it because they're around only other girls.
Morse says the increased attention has improved the quality of training. More people are dedicating time and court space to girls basketball.
There wasn't a lot of gym space for girls to be able to even get in the gym and get better. So I think we've definitely challenged, programs to dedicate more time to young girls.
National youth basketball leagues like Prep Girls Hoops have also seen more participation because of popular players like Clark. This year, 1,650 teams signed up to play. Last year, there were 1,400 teams.
The kids are seeing what these pros and these college students are doing and understanding that it's a business more early on, and that if they do work their butts off, just like if they were going to be a doctor and they started studying stuff at a really young age, right? Like you're going to accomplish the same goals based on the amount of work you put in.
The Indiana Fever's media representative declined requests to interview Clark and any other Fever players. But after their game against the Golden State Valkyries last week, Clark spoke about the importance of setting a good example for young players.
I think my mom has always reminded me that ever since I was a young kid too. Like, even when you're a high school basketball player, there's young girls looking up to you and wanting to be like you, and you got to try to set the best example you can 100% of the time. And, no one's going to be perfect by any means, but I think just reminding myself of that, how grateful I am to be in this position. And, it is my responsibility to try to help grow this game and do it to the best of my ability.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
And we've been experiencing the hottest weather of the year this week. People are looking for ways to cool off. Lexi Dickinson took her kids to the splash pad at Bloomington Switchyard Park to find some relief from the heat.
They love being outside, so it's actually kind of hard because they always want to be outside, but I don't want them to overheat. So we try to do things like the pool, splash pads to keep them cool and being outside.
The National Weather Service says relief may arrive by Tuesday, with highs expected to drop into the mid-80s just in time for 4th of July celebrations. Well, that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller Grosvenor Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grosvenor Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger & Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.